It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard round the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host, Mark Young. What's on your mind today, Mark?
Impeachment.
Welcome.
We
to the
must
show.
impeach.
You know, don't you really? I think Trump is like Brer Rabbit. Remember Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox?
I do remember Brer
Yes,
Rabbit.
in Song of the South. Brer Rabbit kept saying, please don't throw me in that briar patch all the time, wanting to go in the briar patch because it's where he lived.
You know, you're a racist for saying that.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, you can be a racist for anything today, but Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox.
Well, just mentioning Song of the South makes you a racist.
In Jesse Jackson's world, maybe, but not mine. So anyway, yeah, I think Trump wants him to impeach him. I really do.
Here's the point I want to make to people, and that is impeachment to the far left is the wall to the far right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And if you look at all the fundraising, so I've been looking at the fundraising letters.
Yeah.
So people will send me these fundraising letters that they get. And all these fundraising letters are, you need to donate money to this candidate because we must impeach this president.
Mm-hmm.
So the Democrats I think they've painted themselves in a corner. They know that if they impeach, it's probably going to cost them. They're going to lose the presidency. You know, they're not going to win there, but it's probably going to cost them the House.
Right.
Because the American people do not want an impeachment process. The Clinton impeachment is what lost Gingrich the House. We know that.
Yeah.
And it's going to demonstrate, it's going to give every Republican a platform to run on, which is, look, the Democrats have had control of Congress for 2 years, and what have they done for the American people? Zero.
You know, an interesting thing, Mark, when Gingrich brought articles of impeachment against Trump, against Clinton, they still worked together and achieved things.
Yeah.
But with Trump, I mean, the Democrats have no desire at all to work with Trump on anything. But the Republicans did work with Clinton and passed a bunch of things.
Yes.
A lot of things.
Clinton actually had a decent presidency when you think about it. Not decent as in decency, but a decent track record, which can mostly be credited actually to Newt Gingrich.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Not only reining him in, but then working with him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But where I'm going with this is the Democrats are in a corner now because if they don't impeach, they're going to lose their fundraising ability.
Yeah.
But if they do impeach, they're going to lose the House. So now they're stuck in this spot. Do we go door number one for the money?
Hard place.
Right. So do we go for the money? Or do we try to get reelected without the money? So you kind of see where I'm at here?
Well, what's the money for? To get reelected?
Right. But it won't matter. They'll raise the money and still not be able to get reelected.
I have a feeling we owe the American public a little more honor than we're giving them. I honestly believe the House is going to change hands anyway. I could be wrong, but I think so. With everything that's going on and all that's going to be revealed coming out of the CIA, FBI through what DOJ with Barr is looking into, what Durham is looking into, once this stuff starts to cascade and fall like dominoes, it's going to be so overwhelming. And I think that will reveal perhaps the collusion on the Democrats' part.
Yeah, the real collusion.
Yeah, the real collusion on the Democrats' part, and the coup that was set up by the top echelon of FBI, CIA, NSA, the DOJ, even the Obama, the Obama White House itself.
A lot of places with 3 letters.
Well, the interesting thing is that the mainstream media will be in a perpetual moment of denial for when that stuff starts coming out. They're going to try to dissuade you from believing it's true and blame it on Barr or blame it on, they'll find someone to blame it on instead of blaming it on the people who really perpetrated the crimes, if they are indeed crimes. But this stuff is coming to a head. It's going to come out. And it's not that long until the next election takes place. And I'm not so sure that's not going to cover everything that the Democrats are trying to do, whether they impeach him or not. And they may be forced to impeach in order to take the American eye off of what's really happened in the past in the 2016 election.
Well, there's a couple of things they're struggling with. First off, they don't have that much support in the Congress on impeachment.
Well, they don't have anything to impeach him on, really.
Well, they don't need something to impeach him on.
Well, I know that, but they don't really have a solid,
I know, but the founding fathers left it a bit gray.
I know.
So you can drum up pretty much any kind of idea that you want for impeachment. And as we discussed on our last show, Democrats have tried to impeach every Republican in the past 36 years. Mm-hmm. But when this impeachment process happens, it will then go to a trial in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
In order for it to be confirmed in the Senate or to be found guilty in the Senate, you would need 67 votes, which cannot happen.
They know that's not going to happen.
Right. They need 20 Republicans to jump over, which isn't going to happen.
No.
But what happens in a trial? At a trial, you get to present evidence.
Mm-hmm.
The president's going to present a lot of evidence about the wrongdoing.
Well, this is the problem with the Mueller report.
On their part.
This is the problem with the Mueller report. It is a prosecutorial piece that is not rebutted by anything. There's no rebuttal to it.
There's another thing that people are missing.
I'm sorry?
There's another piece when you're talking about the Mueller thing. There's another piece on the Mueller thing that people are missing as we go into this impeachment mess. And that is they clearly cannot impeach based on Russian collusion.
Right.
So where they're trying to go is they're trying to say, well, Mueller didn't exonerate the president on obstruction.
But that's not his job. His job
is not his job
to prosecute.
Mueller is not a good guy.
How would you like to have a judge, a jury, and a prosecutor, and all of them are prosecutors? The judge is a prosecutor, and the jury is a prosecutor. All of them are prosecutors. You couldn't win if you had to.
But what I'm saying is
what Trump's got going against him.
Mueller's hands aren't clean in this. Mueller asked for the job as the director of the FBI the day before he was appointed.
Right.
Mueller went and appointed 18 people to his committee who were all known Hillary Clinton supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Mueller threw this out there. Well, although that we can't charge him with anything, we can't prove anything, we can't exonerate him.
I would not be surprised if Weissman did not write that report.
Probably. Now, in reality, you can't prove a negative. So if I was to say, Chuck Woolery, I know that I'm convinced you were a criminal 20 years ago. Prove me wrong. You can't prove me wrong.
Right.
You can't prove that you're not a criminal. I have to prove you are a criminal.
System on its head that you're innocent until proven guilty. You're not guilty till proven innocent.
But there's another element to this that no one is bringing up. And the element is when you look at the laws on crimes, there are certain things that have to be reached to be able to make them a crime. To be able to make a crime of obstruction, you have to prove what's called the element of intent.
Right.
So you have to prove that in the heart of the president, he intended to cover up a crime. There was no underlying crime.
Right.
So if there was no underlying crime, how could the president have intent in his heart to hide the crime? It's impossible.
You know, the best person to listen on this, I believe, and I listen to him almost every day, is Mark Levin. Mark Levin can nail this easily.
Oh, he's a great lawyer.
And he talks about all of these talking heads on MSNBC, NBC, Fox, no matter who it is, taking these lines of the DOJ's, I can't remember the number of it, but talking about that they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no clue. He claims over and over again, he said, these people are just insane. They keep making all of these claims, and none of them are true. They have no basis of truth.
Nothing.
And it's just words flying out there trying to intimidate, trying to inoculate, trying to convict Trump.
Think about the absurdity of it, that I'm going to get in front of the Senate and I'm going to prove that the President of the United States intended to cover up a crime that I can't prove. Mm-hmm. It's absurd. So Chuck, talking about what people feel in their own heart. We are going to talk to a guest today who, folks, I'm going to tell you is a friend of mine. We sit on a board together. We both sit on World Mission. And we're going to be talking to Kevin Harney. Now, Kevin is a senior pastor at Shoreline Church in Monterey, California. I've been out there. Monterey's really nice, Chuck. You've been out there before.
My son graduated from Carmel High School. I've been out there.
I know you have.
I spent the coldest June in my life in Carmel.
So if you do have to go, work for God, there's no, being able to do it in Monterey isn't a bad spot to do it in. Kevin has written several books, but we're going to talk about a book today that I desperately need, Chuck. It is called what is it? No is a Beautiful Word. Because I have no ability to say no to anything.
That's just not true.
It is true. I can't say no to anyone.
Well, you can't shut up, but you can say no. But the fact that you can't shut up makes you a great host.
When have I ever said no to you about anything?
I have to think about that.
That's right. See that? Kevin, welcome to Blunt Force Truth.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello. It's great to be with both of you.
Thank you. It's nice to have you with us.
So I want to start off. What made you decide to write a book about no?
Well, a couple of things. One, and I actually dedicated the book to my dad because he's told me no more than anybody in my whole life, and he loves me. I've never questioned my dad's love, but he's told me no so many times. He's taught me how to say no. I began writing this book, interestingly, about 15 years ago as what I call a fun book. I began to write. I love writing, and I was writing it for myself because I realized I hit this point where my plate was full. My schedule was full. My life was full. And I'm married. I've got 3 sons. I'm a pastor of a church. I run an international organization. I write books.
You are an incredibly busy guy. I can vouch for this.
A lot going on. And I realized that when my plate was full, when my life was full, I was actually saying no a lot. But the problem was that every time I'd say yes to one thing, something would kind of slide off the other edge of my plate, and I wouldn't even recognize it. It might be my health. It might be my family, my marriage. When my plate was full, I realized that I'm saying yes to everything, but every yes I was saying was a no to something because there was no more room on my plate. And then I began to realize I have to be strategic and say no and love saying no so I can say yes to what matters most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had to do that in Hollywood when I was there. I really had to learn how to say no. And a lot of times you would feel badly about it, but it was not in your own best interest to say yes, probably most of the time.
Chuck is actually one of the most prolific knowers that I actually know. Because
well, I mean,
he's a virtual no storm.
But you can say no in a kind way. You don't have to be, abusive about it and everything else. But everybody understands. And places like Hollywood, for instance, they don't understand the word no. The word no means, well, he's thinking about it, or it's a maybe. It's not really a no. And we'll persuade him or persuade her to say yes eventually. And so there's a whole machine that goes to work on you, publicists, managers, agents, employers, and they're all pushing you, yes, say yes, say yes. And I would say, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, why not? Because it's not in my best interest to do it, and it doesn't mean anything. For instance, I would always say no to radio. They'd say, my publicist say, you got to do all these radio interviews. I said, no, I'm a television guy. I'll do television interviews, some, but I'm not going to do radio interviews. And they would just go insane. And then they bring a stack of things like this. My publicists bring a stack of what people were saying about me in newspapers and so on like that and say, you need to go through this and read it. I said, no. Why not? I said, what do I care? I'm either popular, I'm a success, and I got the numbers to prove it, or what? This is not going to change my life positively or negatively, depending on how I look at it, no matter what I do. So I don't need to see this. I don't need to see what other people think of me. It doesn't matter. I don't know them. They don't know me.
See, Chuck just ratted himself out because, when my producer calls Chuck, my producer will come in my office. We just called Chuck about doing this radio interview, and he said, no. And I'm like, all right, he's thinking about it. We got to work him.
Exactly.
Well, and Chuck, you make a great point, because what you really are saying is you were saying no so many times so you could say yes to what you do best, to what you center on, to what you most value and what's most valuable for you. And all these other
what other people think is valuable for me. I have to consider what I think is most valuable for me since I'm in charge of my own life, hopefully.
And Chuck, all the people that you listed who wanted you to say yes had a profit line or something that would pay off for them.
It was their interest.
So you can't blame them for pushing,
No.
but if you don't say the no, no one else can say it for you. And what's happened is, and Chuck, look at your life and say, okay, you've said no lots of times, but that's freed you up to say yes to what was most strategic.
Sure.
And there's a huge payoff for you, for others, for the world. Right. And so saying no is a beautiful word because it unleashes the positive yes that you want to say.
Well, Kevin, how do we do it though? I mean, I'm serious about this. Somebody comes up to me and I have people come up to me. Will you officiate my wedding? Will you show up here? Will you come to my fundraiser? Will you come and speak over here? How do you say no? These are good people. These are good causes. These are good things.
Yeah, well, in the book was a lot of fun to write. Again, my publisher came to me and said, do you have another book in your heart? And I actually said, no, I don't need to write a book for a while. They pushed me, and I said, well, I've got a book I've been writing for about, at the time, it was like 13 years.
So your no was maybe.
Yeah. So practice what you preach, Pastor. But what happened was I said, well, I've got a book I've been writing. I've been writing it for myself. It's over halfway done. And I shared the concept. And a week later, they sent me a contract for the book. And I hadn't even, and I said, well, let me think and pray about this, talk to my wife, and again, made a wise decision and said, is this the time? Because I knew someday I would turn this into a book. It was really my own notes and my own journaling and my own therapy. But what turned out in the book was it's 68 chapters long, but the chapters range from a paragraph to 3 pages. They're very tight. There's not lots of story, each, maybe one story to make the point and then move on. Because when I read a book, if somebody makes their point and there's 20 more pages in the chapter, I'm done with the chapter. I got your point, So they're very short chapters. And in the book, there's 20 chapters of different ways to say no.
I'll give you some examples.
Okay, here's an example.
I just read a portion of George Will's book about conservatism, and it was an elitist speaking to the elites. I mean, he couldn't resonate with the average common person.
Right. One paragraph took 50 pages.
Unbelievable, wordy, and go ahead. Just to show off his vocabulary more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, this book has entire chapters that are 3 sentences because when the point is made, hey, baby, move on. We don't need to hear you babble anymore, right? Exactly. And so here's some of the chapter titles. This is one of my favorite ones. No, never. I'm offended you asked me. Don't ever ask me again.
Okay, now is that a quote from Chuck?
Stop. That's the strongest no. But now let's just.
I have heard him say almost those exact words.
Chuck, I'm liking you more and more every minute here. So just listen to some of these titles, and you'll in your mind you're going to see the point. Okay, how about this? No, but maybe some other time. No, but I know someone. No, but I have an idea. No, but I'm flattered. No, can I give you some advice? No, can I tell you a joke? No, can I tell you why? No, but I love what you're doing. No, but you should be careful. And there's lots of ways to say no. The problem is we think we want to just say no and we feel nervous. If you add value or clarity, your no could be helpful to a person even though you don't do what they want you to do. So really I walk through just helping people find their right way to say no. I call it know your no's. Know your no's. No, and then choose the right no and decide on the right no. And it really becomes easy over time. And I think what I'm hearing, you say, Mark, about Chuck has become a master of the no. He knows how to say no. But that's a lifetime of learning the right way to say no to the right person, the right circumstance. And you can leave people feeling good after you say no if you say it the right way.
Okay, I don't do that sometimes. I have to admit that I'm not really good about leaving people feeling good. I have 2 no's now. No, I don't fly. No, I won't speak at your engagement for free because I worked 50 years getting a reputation that is worth something, so I'm not going to sell myself short. And that's about it. I don't fly really covers a lot of things. I just won't fly anymore.
Yeah. And in the book, Chuck, I call those automatic no's. There's some things you should make a decision. You make a list of the things that are an automatic no. So you're on autopilot. You don't have to think about it. So if someone asks me this, I know the answer is no. If a server in a restaurant says, would you like a dessert menu? That's an automatic no for me because if you put it in front of me, I'm dead. I'm going to eat.
Exactly.
So no, thank you. And I tell them no. And so if you make a list of automatic no's, it helps you decide in advance. And so, Chuck, you talk about those 2 no's. It's never going to change.
Well, there's another opportunity, though, and that is if you'd like to send a private plane, I live extremely close to a private airport within 5 minutes of it. So, you're welcome to do that. Hardly anybody will do that, period.
Yeah.
Blue Emu works fast and you won't stink. This episode of Blunt Force Truth is brought to you by Blue Emu Pain Relief Products. Now, I've been in show business for many years now, and I'm not slowing down, but I can use a little help every now and then. Blue Emu's family of products are made in America and have become a staple in my life. The deep penetrating formula of Blue Emu Original is best for supporting my muscles and joints, and I'm sure you've seen it. It's on the shelf in a blue and white jar. I also use Maximum Arthritis for any arthritic pain and the lidocaine cream for numbing pain relief. Not only do these Blue Emu formulas work great, there's no chill, no burn, and no odor. Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. Available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Amazon, and other fine retailers.
Kevin just said something that I thought was brilliant, and that is one of our core values in my businesses is bringing value to everyone we meet. So one of the things we really preach to everyone who works here, no matter who you have contact with, whether it's a client or a vendor or anyone, figure out how to bring value to their life. That's something that I just caught from you. You're saying you can say no, but find a way to bring value to that exchange.
Yeah, I had my publisher come to me, this is 25 years ago, and I was editing some academic master's level textbooks, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but I started writing my own content, and they came and said, could you edit this textbook? And I said, no, but I know a guy who's a younger guy just starting out, and I think he'd be great for you. I built the bridge. That person is now probably in the next year or two going to be the head of that entire department for this publisher. And so I built a bridge, and this friend of mine had a chance to edit his first textbook. He got introduced to the world of publishing. The publisher got a great person working for them. I said, no, I can't, but I know someone. I think how many times have you built a bridge to the right person, and that pays off for everybody, and it sets you free from doing the thing that you're not able to do. That's just one example, but again, it brought value to the publisher, it brought value to the friend of mine, and it brought joy to me to see this person's kind of editing, publishing career get launched because I built a bridge. All that because I said no.
Plus, you can push your no off onto somebody else, then they have to defend their no.
Exactly. So you got to guard your nose, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like a boxer, guard your nose.
So, Kevin, do you use this in your ministry? Because you probably counsel people in the church, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So, and like any senior pastor of a large church, you probably have way more people that want to spend time with you than you have the ability to see.
Yeah. Well, and I don't formally counsel. I'm not trained as a counselor. I'll talk with people, give them advice, pray for them. I'm not a counselor, but here's the reality. We have got about 18,000 people that call the church I pastor their church home, and about 6,000 people who are actively engaged. That's a lot of people. And so every single Sunday, I have 3 services I preach, and afterwards I sit on the edge of the stage and I talk with people, and I laugh with them, and I cry with them, and I pray with them. Whatever's going on, we talk about it. And I can't tell you how many times people come up and say, I've got something I need you to do. Yeah, I mean, every week, 4, 5, 6 times. And in most cases, I'm not the right person. My plate is full. If I'm going to say yes to that, I've got to take something else off my plate and cancel something else. So I'm saying no to people I love and care about every single day, and especially on Sundays. I'm going to say 4 or 5 strategic no's. I'll say, I appreciate that. Really, I hear what you're saying. But, a lot of people will come, they'll be brand new visiting the church, and they'll say, hey, can you come over to our house for dinner? And I'll explain to them, okay, well, we have about
18,000 people.
I do the math and I say, well, if I went to dinner with people 3 days a week, it would take me 25 years to get out to eat with everybody. And I just met you. So let's take time. If we get to know each other, that might work out. But for right now, it's not. They usually come from a church that has 40 people in it or 50 people. And the pastor has dinner with everybody in the church.
Do you know who Jack Hayford is?
What's that?
Do you know who Jack Hayford is?
I love Jack Hayford. I think he's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, Jack Hayford was my pastor for about 35 years.
Oh, wonderful.
And a friend. And the interesting thing about Jack was he was so incredibly busy. I mean, he was president of a college. He was a senior pastor of this giant church in the valley, which had grown from like 6 people to thousands, with three sermons a morning and 2 in the evening, and it just went on and on and on. Well, he, like you, was extraordinarily busy. And he would always say to me, he said, everybody thinks I'm so busy that they kind of, it's hands off. They don't want to bother me. Well, I was a friend of his, along with being, a parishioner. And I still never felt like I was comfortable in saying, Jack, would you like to come do this and do that? I remember one time we were on a tee at a golf course. He didn't play golf very well, but he had this friend of his and so he took me to play golf. And he would pray over every shot. Lord, help me hit this straight and long. I'm really trying my best here to do this. And finally I said,
did that work out?
I said, Jack, practice really helps the Lord along. You just can't expect to be an expert because God turned you into one on the tee. He was hysterical. He was very funny, very smart, deeply spiritual, very humble, just a wonderful friend and pastor. I just cherish the time I was able to spend with him. But you know him, you know what I'm talking about.
I've been very influenced by his books and by his ministry. Just you're right, a humble, wonderful person, and has had a great impact on my life. Yeah, that's great to hear.
It's funny because I don't think Mark even knows who he is.
Oh, I know who Jack Hayford is.
Oh, absolutely. You do? Oh, okay. My best friend knows. Okay.
Very familiar.
I've just used that example of I was even intimidated by his work ethic and what he did and how he had to spread himself, and he was traveling all the time. And so do people leave you alone because of that, or do they expect you to come to dinner?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I find that the people who know me really, really well and personally have a wise balance. They understand my life is quite full, but I love them and care about them. Right. People who don't know me very well, who are new, just assume I'm sitting around with nothing to do. And so they will oftentimes make those asks, and I'll be I try to be kind, I try to be pastoral, but I say, that's just not going to work out, and here's the reason why. That's a no, but let me explain why.
Right.
And when you explain, most people kind of listen and they go, I never looked at it that way. And I'll usually say, they've interacted with pastors of a church of, the average church in America is 75 to 85 people. Well, if you have 85 people, you probably have 25, 30 families. You could have dinner once a week with a family in the church, and you get through the whole church in 1 year. That's a different animal. And so people that don't know who I am will sometimes not think about those boundaries. But what I do is it's my job then to help create those boundaries so that they can have an understanding of what my life is like. And so and some people, I'll be honest, some people get upset and feel hurt and say, well, I don't want to go to this church if I can't be best friends with the pastor. And I'll say, I'm sorry to hear that. They won't put it that way, but they'll say, well, we may need to find a different church. And I don't let that manipulate me. I say, well, that'd be unfortunate, but this is the reality. I don't have the margin to hang out with every person who walks in the door.
I think the greatest thing with Jack Hayford, and I'm sure you do the same thing, is his ability to teach and relate. Not only was it a spiritual atmosphere, and we all joined in on that, but there was a quality to the teaching that was just so impactful and so deep that I walked away with, visions of things and views of things and understanding of things that I never would have had under other people. And that's such an incredible talent to be able to teach. Do you have a teaching church? Is that kind of what you do as well?
Yeah, that's my passion. And I, almost every Sunday I'm preaching all 3 services, the same sermon, but then we do a midweek gathering once a month. And I love to teach. I find it fun and energizing. And I do a lot of study, a lot of preparation. It's a different kind of communication. And of course, both of you guys are communicators. So there's different venues you communicate in and you adjust. But preaching or teaching to a large group is a unique kind of communication, but I have a love for it. And hopefully with God's help, I have an affinity for it as well. But I really love to teach.
I think one of the great series that I ever heard, I mean, there were many of them, but one of the great ones was a series that Jack did on Nehemiah. I mean, it's just incredible. It just, the whole thing just comes to life. And I don't know. I really miss those days. I really do miss it. It's hard for here I am in the middle of Texas, and I bet I've gone to 15, 20 churches, and I just can't find it. I just can't connect.
You did go to a Willow Creek church out there. Did that one not connect for you? There was a Willow Creek church. I went with you out there.
No, eventually it's really tough. It's like giving up your favorite professor and going to somebody who's a student teaching the class. It's really when you have that God.
You set the bar really high using Jack Hayford as your measuring.
But when you have that God-given, ability to do that and communicate, like I'm sure you do as well, it's hard to find someplace else to learn because most people don't teach; they just preach.
So Kevin, what advice do you give people? And I guess here's the picture I'm trying to think. So someone comes to someone and will you do X? Will you officiate my wedding? Do you teach people or do you counsel? In the book, do you tell people, okay, what's the technique? Do I take a minute and do I start to think about what must I push off the plate in order to do this? Do I start to try to think of the laws of unintended consequences? Is that what gets me through it? Walk us through that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. The first thing is, if somebody's learning to do this, always give yourself time. Say, hey, give me a little time to think about that. People want an immediate response. And the problem is, if you give an immediate response, it's often the wrong response. You haven't reflected, you haven't thought, you haven't prayed. And so, if you need time, take time. Over time, when you learn how to say no and you know who you are, you can respond more quickly. But once you have the time and the chance to think about it, or if you can at that moment process it, I think you ask yourself the question, is this something that's worth doing more than something I'm already doing? I mean, that's the question. I've got to take something off my plate. I had a guy contact me and say, listen, we want to send you to 3 different states. We want you to promote this a project I had worked on. I was really involved in this project. It was taken off. It was doing great. And they said, we want to send you to 3 different states. We want you to do some promotional pieces. And I said to him, well, give me a week because I need to talk with my wife. I need to pray about this, and I need to figure out what I would take off my schedule so I could afford to do this. And he laughed. He's like, and I said, no, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. I said, I have no time to do this. If I'm going to do this, I will be canceling other things. And he got real serious. And so I talked to my wife, went through the process. I decided to do it. And then probably 3 or 4 weeks later, on the tail end of having well, I guess maybe it was 2 months or so, I had done these things. And he talked to me. He said, that was fascinating when you told me you needed time to think about it. And I kind of laughed. And he took me back through he replayed the story. And he said, you took that really seriously. I said, I take everything seriously. I have a limited amount of time. I can't do everything. And if I'm going to say yes to something right now in my life, and this is true, I know for both of you, if I say yes to something right now, I'm saying no to something else. The question is, am I saying no consciously to the right thing? And so what I tell people to do is weigh that out. And if what someone's asking you to do, if what you're going to cancel is more important, then don't cancel it. Say no. Then the trick is, what's the right way to say no that is going to be clear, definitive, but also show kindness as best I can, and then maintain that relationship.
Now, I know Kevin's wife, Sherry, Chuck, and I can hear her voice in my head right now of Kevin saying, should we go do this? And Sherry going, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? I can literally hear her voice going, just hitting you with 15 different reasons.
Yeah, count the cost, right? Count the cost.
Yeah, I like the idea of what you're saying, and that is take that beat and ask people for a moment.
Yep. That's
probably a really good first step is, hey, I've got to go look at my calendar. I've got to talk to somebody. I want to pray about something. Let me get back to you. So at least you can give yourself that breathing space.
Yep.
So the next step, so I've gotten myself out of the moment, which I think helps the emotion of getting out of the moment. Now what's the next step? The next step is what? Ask myself how important this is and what has to be sacrificed.
Yeah, and you've already done something really big. You've said, I'm not a yes machine. I'm not going to say yes to everything you ask me to do. I'm pausing, I'm thinking, I'm asking for, I'm pausing for 30 seconds, or I'm pausing for 30 minutes, or I'm pausing for a week. But I'm saying you're not getting an automatic yes out of me. That redefines your relationship. I'm not going to say yes to everything you ask me to do. Then you really look at what it is they're asking you to do, whether it's, can you come and speak for free? Or whether it's, can you join me for a meal? Or whether it's, and it may be, what most people discover as time goes on, as their lives become full, is you're not deciding between good and bad. You're deciding between good, better, and most important. And so really weigh those things out. And this means being reflective, thinking of the impact of those things. And some people they just give a knee-jerk response to things. It really helps you develop your sense of, why do I do what I do? What am I going to say yes to? What am I going to say no to? So you really weigh out the consequences of your yeses and your nos. And then you either give a yes and it's appreciated because you took time to think about it, or, and in my case, I say a whole lot more no's than I say yeses these days. In my case, it's thinking, okay, what's the right way to say? I've decided now, my answer is no. Then I quickly go through my menu. And again, there's 20 chapters on this, and the chapters are only a couple pages long, but I'm going through my menu of no's. I'll tell you a funny story. I was doing some film work on this book, some promotional pieces at the publisher, and they had me filming some stuff on this topic. And when they hit cut and the cameras were off, the camera guy and the producer both started asking me questions. They said, okay, one of them says, okay, listen. We have 3 kids, 2 dogs, and my wife wants another dog. How do I tell her no? and he just throws it at me. And this is off camera. I said, hey, listen, get the camera rolling. Let me answer that question on camera. And if you want to use this for some promotional pieces, you can. And I just went through my menu, and I gave him really quickly 3 ways to say no. And he said, I could do any of those. He was like, I never thought of saying no that way. And so picking the right no and expressing it the right way is really powerful, but it's kind of to know your no's. And then I say in the book, then pick your no's.
Okay, I've tried saying no to your wife before, and it didn't work for me.
Well, this doesn't count for her. Nobody says no to her.
I tell you what I'm reduced to. I'm reduced to, because of my age, I'm reduced to the grumpy no.
No. That's the next one.
No, get away.
So, do you have a grumpy no?
Get off my lawn. Yeah.
Yes.
There it is. That's Chuck. Get off my lawn. So how do you deal with the guilt? So let me give you an example. Somebody comes and says, this really happened. I hope the person's not listening. Can you show up at our kid's 3rd birthday party, 4th birthday party? Yeah. And you look at that and you say, okay, my option is I'm going to stay home, or I'm going to go ride my motorcycle. So how do you get past the guilt of saying, Jesus, it's really important to them, and am I being selfish because I just want to go do something that I want to do?
So I said no to a graduation party last weekend. It's graduation season here, and so and I choose to not dwell on it. My schedule didn't allow it. But here's the thing, and Mark, you raised up something important. What if I'm just riding my motorcycle? What if I'm just hanging around at my home? You're not just doing those things. You're caring for your soul. You're resting. You know what it's like to push, and all of a sudden you can't give anyone your best because you're just overextended. So I don't look at if I'll go walk 9 holes of golf. There's a course right across the street from my house. I'll go walk 9 holes of golf by myself, slowly, nobody else around, turn my phone off. Say, well, you're doing nothing. No, I'm not. I'm doing one of the most important things I can do. I'm with people all day long. I'm going all day long. I travel a lot. I'm caring for my soul. So you have to name those things that you're going to do as valuable. I'm going to get on my motorcycle for 2 hours and just ride by myself, or go out with some buddies, have a nice ride. Why do you do that? To waste time? No. It's relationship. It's friendship. It's refreshment for your soul. And yes, you have to value those things above that graduation party in this case, because you want to give your best self to the next thing you're doing that's really important. And will some people feel bad? Here's what I've learned. About 10% of people feel bad when you say no. And they'll get kind of push back and posture and really, they can get even start to distance from you. About 10%. About 10% of people will actually say, man, I like how you said that. And they'll ask you to teach them how to say no because they're hungry for that. And about 80% of people are just like, whatever, they're living their life. They're not worried about it. They're not thinking about, did Mark show up or not? They would love to have had you there. They made the invitation, but most people just are living their lives. And so for the 10% that get angry, upset, or vindictive, in many cases, and we're in a world now where that vindictive spirit is growing with people, you got to just say, I don't care. That's my next book. Apathy is a beautiful word. I don't care. I just don't care.
I've always said the litmus test for my friends have always been, I cannot be friends with someone who is easily and just irritated and what's the word I'm looking for? Easily offended.
Yep.
I can't stand to be around people that are easily, because I will eventually offend you somehow, and I may not even know it. But if you can't, have fun or take it, then I just don't have time for that. The other thing is that I related to is when you said say no. I say no to a lot of things, but I always try to say yes to something I'm looking forward to. Ask me to do something, and I think, well, I'd like to do that. I'm going to say yes.
Mm-hmm. You sound shocked. I'm going to say yes to something.
Well, no. No, that's not really true. I mean, now Kristen has asked me because her grandson needs a little time, so she's going to take him to a dude ranch in Colorado. And she said yesterday, now, I want you to obviously go with us. Will you go with us? I said, no. She said, why? I said, I live in Texas. What do I need to go to a dude ranch in Colorado for? She said, well, it'll be good for Peyton. I said, I know that, but still, can you imagine me stuck out on a dude ranch? I mean, could I fly fish? Can I do that? Because we're going to Montana. I guess we're going to go. Because I will eventually, because I love her, I will say yes.
I could see you on the dude ranch 15 years ago. Not that you'd had a great time, but you probably, but I agree with you. The dude ranch probably just
melody.
That's I'm not seeing that really appealing to you, though. I would kind of like to do the dude ranch, though. Tell her I'll go. But you're right.
I won't go, but Mark will go with you.
Yeah. Sometimes you're right about the motorcycle. Sometimes I just want to get on my motorcycle because I can't answer my cell phone.
Yep.
You can't really? Don't you have that all hooked up into some kind of...
It is hooked to the dashboard on my bike, but I purposely don't wear the headset.
It's either the theme of the Valkyrie or Born to be Wild. I mean, it's one very loud.
So we figured out how to get past the angst or the, what we'll call it, the guilt of it. So we got some steps to that. What else are we going to learn in this book?
You're going to learn that saying no actually sets you free. And I'm big on freedom. I believe, and I believe God's big on freedom. I think freedom is something that's, it's getting tougher and tougher to find. And saying no creates a place for freedom to say yes to what matters most, to the people you love the most, to what's most productive. And what happens for so many people is they say so many yeses to things that they end up saying no to the most important things by accident. But when you say strategic no's, you can say yes to the things that matter most. I just became a grandpa this year, and I like to have time with my little grandson. And I'm not going to let the demands of other people who aren't as close to me muscle out those wonderful moments playing with little Cohen and hanging out with him and kissing his little round head and face. I mean, just a sweet little guy. And you go, well, that's selfish. No, it's not. That's a wise decision. I'm saying yes to family. I've raised 3 boys, and I coached 11 years of soccer. I love the game of soccer. All 3 of my boys played soccer. There were times I coached 3 teams at a time. I had to say thousands of no's for that one yes. I will be available to coach soccer, but my boys will never forget that. My 3 sons remember that dad was there, part of their life. And so I'm saying no because I want to be unleashed to the freedom of all the yeses that matter the most. And I don't want to miss those seasons of life where, here's the reality. You get too busy, overextend, and a week goes by, a month goes by, a year goes by, you hardly noticed it. And the people and the things that matter the most, and I think even for me, even faith, having that time to be quiet and to reflect, and those things matter so much, and they get pushed out by the sea of requests and all the yeses. So you learn to say no, and you can say yes very, very strategically, and you become free and joyful and peaceful in a way that you can't if you're a yes machine.
Yeah, I could see that if you can get it down, Chuck, it would be empowering.
It's very interesting, Mark, and you know this to be true because you've participated to a certain extent in this. The biggest no business in our world today is a business that I was involved in. They say no to everything. Yeah, the show business is a no business. No, you can't do that. No, we can't get that done. No, that's impossible. No, we need a writer. No, we can't use you. No, you're too short. No, you're too tall. No,
Hollywood knows the safe word.
To them, it is the safe word, no.
I don't lose my job when I say no to a program. I lose my job when I say yes to a bad program.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
So it becomes the safe word. So, Kevin, I get requests all the time, and I'm positive you do, from every possible charity, every type of need, and you look at these things, and there are many great things that need your resources. So now I'm not even saying about my time. Now I'm saying people are asking me for money. Can you donate to this? Can you donate to that? You can't donate to everything. How do you deal with that? Because these are good things. These aren't bad people.
Yeah. And every one of us operates with a different, financial picture, but all of us should have that sort of not only a generous heart, but a joyfully generous heart. I really think that to have joy and generosity is one of the great gifts because I believe in a God who is joyfully generous with us and the blessings we have. And I've got to travel the world, the blessings we have in the country we live in, even with the current struggles, there are still so many blessings and so much to be thankful for. And so what I find is that, learning to say yes to the things that matter the most comes because you're saying no to the things that aren't as important. And financially, for me, my wife and I talk about it together. We don't make a lot of knee-jerk decisions. And that's, when someone comes, can you do this? That's always, financially, it's always a give me a little time. If I'm walking down the street, I'm a pastor, I'm a compassionate person, but if I'm walking down the street and somebody's asking for money and it's clear it's because they're going to do drugs or drink or make their life worse, that's an easy no for me. That's an automatic no. That's actually one of my automatic no's. If I know someone's going to damage themselves with the help of the money I'm going to give, it's an easy no. Now, it's trickier when it's a shelter and an organization that's really helping people get back on their feet, become responsible, get a job, and step forward in life. But what we do is we block out a certain percentage of our income for our local church, the church I pastor, and that's on autopilot. It's actually, the 15th of every month, we're given this, we're part of that. Then we've got a couple of kids we support through Compassion International, a great organization that helps children. Of course, about every 2 months, they send me a thing saying, thanks for what you're giving. Here's another kid in need. And so there's always the thank you, and can we have a little bit more? And so what we've done is we have made a decision to have X amount for our church, X amount for other things that are committed. And then we have a small pool that we set aside for something that might pop up. But when that's gone, that's all we can do. And we've actually thought it through. And then everything else is a no matter how good it is, because we're out of money. That's what we've set aside for that.
I mean, I suppose Jesus himself said that the poor will always be with us, that we're never going to be able to resolve all of it.
Yeah, and that was just a statement of reality. Jesus wasn't like, this is wonderful. He's saying, in the world, the way that the world functions, the way human economics function, there's always going to be people that don't have a whole lot. That's the way it is. And what he was really getting at is he was saying, but make sure you keep your priorities right, worship me, and understand. He wasn't saying don't help the poor, but he's saying there'll always be opportunities to help, and they will never go away. And so we have to realize that. So
would you say then, if I'm understanding you, would you say that if someone brings a cause to me and they're asking for money, would the litmus test be my own passion or heart that I feel for it? Would it be, wow, this is something I deeply care about, versus I don't really care about this, but it seems like a good cause? I mean, should I just be looking, inside to say what's important to me and with this given amount of money? Well, I would say yes and no. Yes, I think our passions can drive our giving, but here's the reality. Some of our passions are just stupid, right? I mean, there's people who go, I'm passionate about this, I'm going to give towards you. You go, that's just a stupid cause. It's a waste of money. They don't manage money well. I look at an organization, I say, so I'm not spontaneous in my giving very often, because I want to look and say, are you financially accountable? Are you responsible? I was raised by parents who said, man, you're responsible, you work hard. And I believe that. And so I'll look at an organization and I'll say, what percentage of what they're giving is going to the source? If they're asking for $100 and $10 is going to get out to the people in need and $90 is put in administration, I'm not giving. But if it's $90 is getting out there to the need and $10 is for administration, now you got my attention. And so I'll actually ask those questions. I'll do a little bit of background study. So when I give to a group like Compassion, I don't get paid for anything for mentioning this, but we have 2 kids now we sponsor through Compassion. We know them. We've met them personally. We've been to El Salvador. We played with these kids. They're sweet kids. And we feel good about what we give because we know it's going for food. It's going for education. We know where it's going. I've seen the records. I know how they function. Great. Somebody comes up to me randomly and says, can you give towards this? Somebody calls on the phone. Never. I'll say, send me some literature. Let me do a little research. Guess how many of them send me any literature? 0. So use some wisdom, right? And say no, but then you can have that money to invest in something that, yes, could hit your passion, but also that's truly fruitful, that really makes a difference. I actually, Chuck, this is motivating me. Seriously, this is motivating me to go cancel a flight to go someplace that I don't really think I need to be at, so that I can go do something else. No, not you. But yeah, so this is good. What else is the message in the book? Is there anything else that our listeners are going to get out of this, Kevin? Not that that's not enough. They're going to get a lot out of it. I've gotten a lot out of just talking to you.
Yeah, well, one thing that will happen, Mark, is exactly what you just described. People will read this book or they'll listen to the audio book, and then if they know me, they'll interact and they'll say, I actually canceled some things. And the minute I did it, after I canceled it and after I worked through the emotional, this is hard, they're like, I just was like, I went, and they're kind of like this sigh of relief, and they feel like I'm getting my life back. People reclaim their lives.
There is a certain fear that goes along with saying no, and there's no question about it. You're fearful.
Being disliked.
I'm sorry. Well, sure.
Being disliked is a fear.
Being judged and disliked. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, people have a fear of that. There is right now, and
obviously I fear nothing.
No, you are fearless. There is. I am dumbfounded today, and Kevin, you probably do the same thing. So I have a personal assistant who runs my life, and it is getting so ridiculous that when a friend calls me and says, "Hey, can you go to lunch?" I have to refer it back to her for her to find a date 3.5 weeks from now, when I can go out to lunch with a buddy who I normally would have just met for lunch. And I'm sure you're kind of in that same boat now. We're living on calendars, and it's getting ridiculous. So I met a guy, and tell me what you think of this. I thought this was a fascinating idea. This guy says whenever anyone asks him for a commitment, such as be on my show, do a speech, show up at this place, he tells them, he says, because people will come and they'll ask him 6 months in advance, can you come and speak at my church? He says, you can only ask me to do something when it's within 4 weeks of the date. Because he said what he has found is that when something is 3, 4, 5, 6 months out, his mind defaults to saying yes because it's so far away, I'm sure I can work it out.
Yeah.
But when it's pushed into this 30-day window, it now forces him to say, okay, now look at my calendar. What must I give up? Because now something's got to go if I'm going to do this. What do you think of that technique?
Yeah, I think that could be very helpful for some people. In my case, with my speaking, I have things booked into 2020 and 2021 right now. But here's what I do, Mark, and this is kind of my way of doing the same thing. I actually will declare a month full when there's a certain amount of things going on. So there's some months that are 18 months out that I'll say, that month's full. And I'll say to my assistant, I'll say to the people I work with, nothing new. That month is now full. Because I know what I can manage. I know my life. And I've got a pretty high level of energy. I love to do what I do. So I'll just kind of mark, there's nothing you can add to that month without my special permission, and it would have to be extraordinary circumstances. And I don't give that very often. So you can also sort of just say, that's now full. And that's full when there's still a few lunches open so I can hang out with friends. And Mark, a minute ago, you asked a question about kind of the results of this, what we expect to happen. There's a section in the book that I call no results, which are the results of saying no. And here's some of those things. Your life is more fun. You're more rested. You're more energetic. You think more clearly. You live with less clutter, and your priorities are crystallized. Those are some things that will happen when you learn to say no, which means if you don't learn to say no strategically, your life is not as much fun. You're not as rested. Your energy level goes down. Your thinking gets muddied. Your life becomes cluttered, and your priorities are all mixed up. And some people listening are probably going, that's me. Well, it's time to start saying no.
I host another podcast with a guy by the name of Dan Sullivan, and you've met him before, Chuck. Mm-hmm. And Dan's brilliant. He runs a company called Strategic Coach, which I'm a member of. And he has a thing in Coach, which I'll share for people. And in Coach, we have something which are called focus day, buffer days, and free days. And in the Coach model, you decide how many free days you're going to take this year. And a free day is a 24-hour period midnight to midnight, where you did not conduct business. So his whole point is, and if you're going to start answering emails and taking phone calls, that wasn't a free day. And that you budget yourself these free days, and now you put them on your calendar as if they're appointments. Yep. So in this particular model, you make appointments with yourself to not do something. And you don't allow people to violate it.
I can't relate to either one of you. I'm sorry. I mean, not on any level.
I know that.
I have lived, and Mark knows this, I have lived my life for 50 years in retirement.
When Chuck comes to when he comes to Detroit and stays with me, he will oftentimes look at what I'm doing and, do you do this all the time?
Listen, Kevin, listen to this. I work 2 days every 3 weeks, and I accomplish 2 weeks worth of work in 2 days. Okay? 5 shows a day, 2 days in a row, 2 weeks done. So I work 4 days a month on a year-round show like Wheel of Fortune, Scrabble, whatever. That would have been a year-round show. It took me 2 days a month to accomplish that.
And this is why we have a saying here in my office. And that saying is, it's good to be Chuck Woolery.
Yeah, right.
It's a nice gig if you can get it, right?
Now I have 2 shows on the air. I have Scrabble on NBC, which runs 52 weeks a year. And then Love Connection, which is running 36 weeks a year. Okay? I get them both done in about 70 days, and the rest of the year I'm on my own. There you go.
And thus
it's been like that. It's been like that my whole life. So I get very flustered if I have a full book. I would just come loose at the seams. Arms and fingers and noses and ears would be flying in every direction. I have no idea how you guys do it.
And this is why this is why you are always dumbfounded when you see my schedule, because it's like, how do you do that? I've heard you say it. How do you do that every day? But this is what most of us are doing.
Why do you do that every day?
You're more the exception than the rule, I think.
I guess so.
I'm going to guess and say that anybody who's in, what would I say? Anyone who is in somewhat of a success-driven or a role of authority nowadays probably looks more like Kevin or more like me when it comes to schedule.
Well, and to put my life in perspective, not to talk about me, it's enough about me. I'll talk about you. What do you think about me? Let me put it this way. I have been a horse all of my life. My job has been the horse. There's always been a jockey on top that literally made most of the money and made most of the decisions. And I was just a guy that, they pulled the reins on, sat on the saddle, and rode into the sunset. That's not really saying much when you think about you're, a nationwide celebrity for 50 years and you end up realizing you're just a horse. That's it.
Well, sometimes I've referred to Chuck as the accidental celebrity.
Well,
no intention in this, right?
Really?
Well, no, you kind of just show up.
Yeah,
it is true. Kevin, any last thoughts for our audience?
Well, I would just finish by saying that some people will look and say, I just can't say no. And I would say to those people who feel that way, I would say wholeheartedly, if your life is full and you say you can't say no, acknowledge the fact that you're saying no all day long. The problem is you're saying yes to new things and important things keep falling off the plate. And you'll feel that. You'll feel like, boy, I'm becoming cluttered. My mind's becoming muddied. My life's not as much fun. I'm feeling pressure, maybe some resentment. And strategically saying no is always better than accidentally saying no. And so learn to say no well. Learn to say it kindly when you can. But be firm and be clear and just watch what happens. You'll start to reclaim your life. You'll start to feel like you have a life again. And Mark, I'm gonna hit you hard as we close here. The next time we're at a board meeting together, let's talk about this. But you know what? That thing you're thinking about canceling, here's my encouragement. Cancel it, baby. What do you say, Chuck? Cancel it, right?
I say amen, amen, and amen.
There you go. Preach it.
Mark actually wastes an awful lot of his time talking to people, trying to teach them something they don't want to learn. It's just amazing.
Kevin Harney, the book is No is a beautiful word, folks. You can get the book on Amazon. You can also get the audiobook, which Kevin does himself. Go to the show notes at bluntforcetruth.com with the Kevin Harney episode. You'll find links to it. You'll find links to Kevin's church at Shoreline Church, also to Kevin's own website, which is kevinharney.com. Brother, thanks for being with us. It has been awesome. Chuck?
Absolutely, Kevin. I must say that if I lived close to you, you could be my pastor. I would go to church there.
Well, come golfing at Pebble Beach someday, and we'll go to church together.
I can't golf anymore. I'm too old now. I can't even hardly walk. Thanks, Kevin, so much for being on the show. We really enjoyed having you. Great insight to the word no, and nobody could appreciate it more than me. Thank you, my brother.
It's my privilege. Thanks to both of you guys. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time on Blunt Force Truth.